doing?
Hi. If you're on our mailing list, you probably got the email we sent out recently about Wilhelm Reich and his work.
And the Orgone generator.
And the Orgone generators and all that. It's really quite fascinating. And Reich's work is really, really interesting. And if you look online these days, you'll see that although Reich was imprisoned and his work was broken up at the time, that there are people that have carried on his research and continue to do so until today. And we did an experiment here using a sort of a makeshift Orgone cannon. And we're trying to bust up some on a very particularly heavy chemtrail day. And amazingly enough, just with that tiny experiment, they opened up, and for at least a brief period of time, the sunshine.
Yeah, it was so startlingly spectacular that I doubted I was seeing what I was really seeing until David actually came out of the house. I was
sitting at the computer and watching out from the house the whole time. And I mean, it had been a hazy day all day long because there's just so many chemtrails. Mm-hmm. And then suddenly it was getting lighter and lighter and lighter. And while she's out there doing her working, and now suddenly the sun is shining, I thought I ought to go outside and say something.
Yeah, it was because I'm looking at it, I'm like, well, gosh, I mean, well, okay. So it started opening up the minute I walked outside. But I mean, I had the whole cannon in my hand when I walked outside. But it started the minute I walked outside. So that's why I started doubting myself, because I thought, oh, well, maybe the wind was blowing and it was already doing this. But, I kept my faith up, because that's what you have to do when you're powering a spell, right? I kept my faith up, and I was waiting and waiting and waiting. It looked like it was getting better and better. And then David came out and reaffirmed what I was experiencing.
So Wilhelm Reich, I mean, it's like, okay, he calls it Orgone energy and suggests it's the same as orgasmic energy. Well, yes, okay, Kundalini is also sexual energy.
And Chi, Manaprana.
Yeah, all of it. It seems to me that he was talking about the same thing as the God force, but he's working with it in vastly different ways than everyone else. He's taking a scientific approach to this thing.
Right. And then when I started looking at this stuff,
all my being training, a scientist, I mean, when she discovered Wilhelm Reich, I mean, it's like, we hadn't discussed it before, but, I got interested in Wilhelm Reich because of my involvement in the Golden Dawn, because as in the Outer Order, my first training was with Chris Monastra, who recently passed away, an incredible woman. She was a brilliant psychotherapist, which, by the way, we might talk about psychotherapy and magic a little bit because someone asked.
Oh, yeah, right.
But Chris Monastra was absolutely a brilliant therapist, a brilliant magician. And so she was the one who introduced me to the ideas of Wilhelm Reich, because she had gotten that from Israel Regardie. See, Chris Monastra was Israel Regardie's primary disciple. Now, Israel Regardie, okay, this had nothing to do with his contact with Crowley, except for the fact that after his relationship with Crowley was over, he was devastated, and he went to find refuge and heal with Dion Fortune.
Right.
So it was there while he was living with Dion Fortune and healing from the catastrophe of the nightmare relationship he had been in with Crowley as his secretary, that he came in touch for the first time with Dion Fortune's passion for depth psychology and for the new psychotherapies and bringing psychology into magic, and the importance of avoiding ego inflation. All of these things that you find in Regardie's work come directly from Dion Fortune and her influence on Regardie.
She was also an incredible influence on Gerald Gardner, the father of the modern witchcraft movement. Much of her poetry and her energetic insistence came because she saw, again, the negative influence of Crowley and did her best to strip it out of Wicca where she saw it and replace it with her own works of poetry and devotion, informed from deep psychology. So in magic, we come at Dion Fortune from two different directions. So if you have a chance, you should check out any of her books.
So, you can look online. There's some very interesting thing about Orgone rooms and Orgone generators and Orgone cannons that we're experimenting with here. And
yes, and we're having some really good
fun. We're having fun with it, and we're getting some interesting results.
Yeah, some really interesting results.
So, yeah, you might want to take a look at some of that. And so, anyway, I became interested in Wilhelm Reich because of my contact with Chris Monastra, her real name was Patricia Bayman, by the way. Now we can talk about that now that she's gone. She always was very, very cautious about using her real name in magic because she worked for the government as a psychologist. So she wanted to protect her job. And so she got this from Regardie. So Regardie was like so interested in this stuff that the first lead that he got was Wilhelm Reich through the unfortunate. And he became really, really, really interested in the work of Wilhelm Reich. So my passion for Reich came from Regardie. And, Regardie got so interested, in fact, in the work of Wilhelm Reich that he became a chiropractor, a doctor of chiropractic, so he could actually be licensed to do what he really was doing, was Reichian therapy. So yeah, Regardie was a Reichian therapist. So this is where this passion comes from on my side. And Leslie, then, when I was writing an email about this, and we were sending it out, I was like, hey, this is pretty interesting stuff this writes. Wait a minute, let me see that email. It's like, what? It's like, and ever since then, we've had like Orgone canon projects going here, and all of these different Orgone projects. Mm-hmm. So the scientists got a hold of the notion of Wilhelm Reich and magic, and off we are to the races.
Yes. Awesome.
I got here a next question that I think is right up your alley here. I was looking over the questions, and Frater Tataka asks, what would be best to clear space and call in protection before leading a shamanic drum journey for others? I really only know the LBRP, Rosicrucian, etc., but it seems sterile to me. This is a very good, this is a Leslie question.
I've got a tool for that.
She's got a tool for that. So, clearing a space for shamanic work. Here are several options, as I see. You're about to get the most thorough answer.
Tools. Okay.
For clearing a space.
Tools for clearing a space. Okay, now the thing that they all have in common is they're in the rattle category. Yes, this is a bell. This is a witchcraft bell, but it can be used in the same way. So I'm going to show you how to use all of them on David.
All righty. Here we go.
Now you can either clear the entire space using this technique, or you can just do it person by person. I prefer person by person because you're much less likely to have somebody ride in on someone. What this does is I'm going to clear off all the guck. We talked about larvae and leeches. Well, they come on all the time, and you can clear them off very easy. This is a bean off of a southern tree in the United States. I forget. We always just called it a bean tree. I don't know what it's called, but these things hang down off of it.
Look like giant mesquite beans.
Right. And these trees are enormous. They're like 60 feet tall, and they'll be covered in hundreds of these. Anyway, it makes a very good natural rattle. And the way you use it is, we'll do it this way so they can see. And I'm just clearing through his aura. You go all the way down. You have them lift their feet. You want to take the rattle underneath their feet. Lift up. Next foot. Lift up. There you go. All the way down. You want to make sure that you cut that connection across the earth. See? And then one pass down the back to the belt line. A pass across the front to the belt line. And then seal it in. And that will clear the space. You can also do the same thing with a Wiccan bell. Like that.
Wow.
Do you hear the subtones that it makes?
I could feel it in my energetic body.
This is a powerful tool. All right. Now we'll use an Egyptian sistrum. It can be used in exactly the same way. There's actually two forms of the sistrum. This is an Icenian sistrum, and this is a sistrum that's used in the Bastet temple. They have slightly different structures. In later periods, they crossed over and they started using each other's, making a mishmash of it. So doesn't it have a nice, smooth Icenian feel to it? Mm-hmm. Okay. The Bastet.
Wow. Well, thank you.
They all feel different, don't they?
I feel very good now. It's like energized, God force flowing.
This
Yum.
one, this one is an African style. It's called the cassava. I have a modern one that's not on a gourd, but it has a different sound. Isn't that interesting?
Wonderful.
Each one of them has their own specific signature to the cleaning.
And if you're feeling it with your energy body, they each have their own particular vibration and feel of energy quality as well. They're all different.
And they make the operator feel different as well, which is why I went through all of them, because I know that if I start with one, if I just continue with all of them, it'll get balanced.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So,
and someone else wants to know what's the difference with smudging. Now,
okay.
Smudging is more like in the GD, in the Golden Dawn, we use purification and consecration. We use fire and incense in the temple, and we purify in the four quarters.
Right.
So, but smudging is Native American.
Yes, it's also one of the shamanic tools, and it does exactly the same thing. It's just quieter. But the thing is, allergies. You can't. You
can't predict people's allergies in a public setting, so it's better to use a different sort of tool. Is what you're saying, right?
Exactly, and you also can't always predict if you're allowed to burn things in the building in which you find yourself. You can always use sound. All right. So the question is, what am I thinking when I shake the instruments? What I'm thinking is I'm cleaning, and I'm thinking just cleanse and purify, cleanse and purify, cleanse and purify, cleanse and purify, scrape up all the gunk, cleanse and purify. And see, I can do it even just by waving my hand through your aura.
And and I can feel it. I can feel it with you just waving your hand.
Cleanse and purify, cleanse and purify, cleanse and purify. See?
That's amazing. Even without any implements at all, I could feel what she was doing in my energetic body.
And you just sweep it away. But I use the sound because the sound actually has a sympathy. Your skin vibrates in sympathy with it. And because we're mostly water. And just like when you tap the side of a glass, it will make the
vibrate
waves.
With the sound.
It'll make waves in the water in the glass. So when I come by with the bell, I'm making waves in his actual physical body with the sound. And this bell is very sharp. It has I like it because it carries certain secondary harmonics.
Right.
When you start hitting it over and over, did you notice after I was about halfway through it, it had picked up a secondary tone, woo, and you could hear that woo humming out on top of the bum 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 bum. Now Natan L, he had two.
Now
bloats.
It's time to brag.
There, see, here's his bloat one.
Oh, Natan was ready for this.
Oh, he was.
Want to go ahead and read that for us?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and read the first one.
Mm-hmm.
This was an epic month for spellcasting. Remembering when Mr. Griffin told me to find the magic within myself, I've been experimenting with different ways of manifestation through using what I have learned in the coursework and coaching sessions. The Looks Note worked well, Plato's Cave worked well, and this month, using computer role-playing game-making software, I was able to manifest a few things I needed and wanted, using the same sympathetic cave style, literally and symbolically imitating what I want or want to happen. I tried 3 different easily available RPG making softwares. All had the same success rate. The magic is inside me, no matter what the tool is.
Ooh, that's
then
a big
the magic
realization.
is inside me is also in the tool.
That is amazing.
Isn't
what
that
a
fantastic?
fabulous realization.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Really
it's really,
good.
really good. Congratulations, Nathaniel. That's a big.
How can we help an ill member of the family with magic? Okay. Now, first, it's considered a point of ethical pride that we magicians get permission before we cast spells directly on others. And the easiest thing to do would be to say, would you mind if me and some of my friends had a prayer circle for you? Because essentially spells and prayers are the same thing when it comes to healing magics.
So that you take care of the ethical part of it,
Because that will make the magic flow much better. If they know the magic is coming, they'll be open to it and they won't panic when it comes at them because they're going to feel something trying to get in.
Right.
And they're already ill and they're going to be, no, nothing more in. I'm sick. I'm trying to heal. So if they know that the magic is coming, then they'll be more likely to accept it and it should be more effective. And truly, healing is one of the few things on earth that works just with simple prayer. It's astonishing.
It's
There has
amazing.
been study after study after study after study with every sort of double blind you can imagine built into it. And every single time, each scientist just says, well, it has to be the placebo effect because there's no other explanation for why it would be that the group that was preyed on healed faster than the group that got the antibiotics. Yes, there is, because prayer is the single most effective way we have of healing ourselves and others. Prayer is one of the few things you can also do without permission, because you are not acting on the free will of another. You are asking God to, on this person's behalf, give them what they need to be healed. That's a very different modality from I'm going to heal you. No, I'm asking God if he will intercede on your behalf and make you well.
Especially, in a, Anna, I can give you, a couple of other ideas too, because I know that you live in Spain, and, you can use local magic. Now, I'm not saying anything at all about, the religious aspects, but, I know that there is, there's local magic in Spain, a lot of places, like, for example, La Virgencita de Montserrat, the Black Virgin of Montserrat, has been known for making many, many miracles, many miraculous healings.
Really?
Oh, yeah. And, these things are also, in addition to whatever supernatural virtue there may or may not be in a statue per se, it's a form of magic. Mm-hmm. It's a form of the magic of faith.
Right.
And it is,
right.
your faith that is fueling the spell. Now, prayer is a really good tool. It's a really good tool because it's fuel-fired magic, whether or not you believe in God.
Right. It's
faith-fired magic. Mm-hmm. You at least have to believe in the power of something greater than yourself. Mm-hmm. But it works best, of course, for people who believe in God. For those of us that believe in God, like myself, it is, an incredible power that you're tapping into. You are tapping into the God force at a very, very deep level when you pray, especially when you're doing healing magic.
Now, any healing magic beyond that, that's the sort of thing that you go to a root granny or a shaman or a drummer. You go to certain places for this because the lore surrounding healing is as massive as any other healing tech.
Right. Well, there are other things, like, for example, I know, that there is there's a magical order in Italy that is specialized in healing magic. Right. But I know, Anna, living in Spain, I know I always try to find things that are hooked into the culture already, that there's already
right, because you have a faster connection. The magic's smoother.
And it's the power of the egregore. For example, we were talking earlier about smudge.
Yes.
Okay, I've lived both in Europe and I've lived here.
Right.
Smudging in America is marvelous. There is nothing like it for purification.
It's an amazing technique.
Try the same thing in Europe. It doesn't work at all as well. There in Europe, you're much better off to use frankincense because it's like the power of the local magic, the power of the genius loci, the power of what's already there and in use. Okay? So therefore, Anna, the recommendations that I'm making to you, I mean, I'm not telling you this as from a Christian point of view, but I'm telling you this simply from a magical point of view. And that is that if you can find a magical tradition that is indigenous there where you are to work with the problem, that is the best. Always. Always. And when people are having problems, I always recommend to them, the first thing is whatever local magical tradition there happens to be. In your case, I would suggest a pilgrimage to Montserrat or to one of the other places in Spain where they have these special icon pilgrimages. Is one thing. And another thing that I know for sure, because I've heard this before, although I don't have any contact with them, there is a very, very rich tradition of healing magic in the Basque part of Spain. I know that there are still people today that still practice the old ways of healing in the Basque country. I know it's there. If you can find something like that, very powerful for where you live.
Oh, Anna's from Croatia, not Spain.
Oh, Anna's from... I'm sorry, Anna. I'm giving you... I don't know that much about Croatia.
Wrong.
I'm sorry, I got the wrong.
No, if I remember correctly, though, Croatia, you don't call them root grannies like we do in Appalachia, but old wise women who usually, even in my town, everybody knew this old preacher woman who, who could fix you up if the doctors couldn't. Like if the doctor said that you were going to die, then everybody went over to her house and didn't die.
You can also, if you're working also with Golden Dawn magic, you can do an invocation of Raphael, the angel, the archangel of healing. Raphael actually means healing. So that's something else that you could do. Let's see. But yes, it depends. If you're asking also, here's another question from Anna, a follow-up question. Is it more efficient prayer or magic in illness?
Well,
okay, that depends.
Yeah.
It depends on how skillful a magician you are. And it depends on what sort of magic you're using and that you have at your disposal. And it also depends whether or not you're a Christian and whether or not prayer is something that's already a part of your life. You see, I grew up, a little bit of my background. All right, I grew up as a kid. My mom dragged me off to a Baptist church, right? So I grew up Baptist. But, I grew up in the 50s and 60s. And during that time is exactly when the charismatic movement was in its heyday in America. It was really like spreading like wildfire. And eventually there were charismatic churches all the way to the Catholic Church. I mean, it went everywhere.
Wow.
Lutherans, Episcopalians. It was like suddenly we've got all these people speaking in tongues and laying on hands and doing faith healing and these sort of things. So, this is something, the power of prayer and the miraculous healing power of prayer is something that, has been with me since my very, very early childhood. So, if that's something also from your background, then yes, prayer can be extremely effective because you've seen it before and you have faith that it works and you know that it can work.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I would say depending on your background, prayer could be more powerful. Or if you have the right kind of magic and you've got the right skill set and you've got the right experience, well, in that case, magic can be more powerful.
Right. And what I mean when I say that there's specialists, I mean people who know how to use herbs. You know how to use herbs and different parts of trees and teas and poultices and things. The art of teas, poultices, tinctures, potions, powders, poultices, all that is part of magic, but it's in that section of magic that also has third dimensional, actual medical, measurable, scientific qualities behind it as well.
Right. I have to say, and I really am glad to have a chance to talk about this a little bit today because I've really been thinking a lot about this lately. I've been giving it a lot of thought and I've been looking very, very hard at my own spiritual roots and my own childhood. And I was actually surprised to realize recently that my career in magic began a lot younger than I thought it did. Because, little did I understand that when I was growing up, that Protestant Christianity in the United States was going through this amazing change at the time where all of a sudden there are all of these magical things happening. People are suddenly starting to speak in marvelous languages. People are falling down under the power of the Holy Spirit. People are getting miraculous healings. It's all of these amazing things. And people believing that these things are real. I mean, they're convinced, including I was convinced as a child. So here I am, defying the rest of the culture already as a kid, believing in the power of miracles, believing in the power of magic, believing that it is possible actually to make our lives better using prayer, using the power of, which is also a form of magic at the end of the day.
Right.
So here I am, 60 years later, and still on this magical path, and still recommending to people under certain circumstances as a magical prescription, the power of prayer. Right, not only, but it is certainly a very powerful tool in a magician's arsenal. All right, Brother Tataka says, I did a Paleolithic spell on my dry erase board. A picture of a skull that I wrote attributes I would like to be better at in my job. then a symbol for some of my power animals, and blue circles around it. It definitely noticed better concentration at work. I'm a programmer, so my mental state is very important for my productivity. Wonderful.
That's really good.
Right. And what I like about it is that you're using your spells not only to manipulate your external environment, but you're using your spells to manipulate your internal environment. And this is very important. Continue on that.
Good stuff. Really good.
Good job.
Stuff.
Wendy would like you to please share the rubber band spell for weight loss.
Oh, okay. All right.
That's a mean one.
That's a mean one.
That's some of her spells are kind of severe. You might not want to know this one.
Let me go get it.
Okay.
I'll go fetch my rubber band.
All right, here we go. We're here with the rubber band spell.
All right, here's the rubber band spell.
All right.
Oh, all right. This is how you break a bad habit. Okay. Rubber band spell. Different people put their rubber band different places. I'm kind of tough. I've used this spell a long time. Some people put the rubber band on the wrist. Okay. And then what you do is when you see yourself reaching for the refrigerator, you grab this and you. It broke off. Oh. Obviously, I don't need the diet spell.
That's so funny. Oh
What
my
are you
God.
supposed to do is snap yourself with it.
Okay, so you snap yourself. Right. You're using negative reinforcement. It's a great spell.
It is a great spell. And the thing is, I've done this so much that I use the inside of my arm here because this is really tender skin.
Yeah.
It's super tender. So
You're training, it's interesting because what you're really doing here is,
negative reinforcement.
Well, not only that, but you're training the donkey. Okay.
Right.
I like to think of the human body as the temple of God, the temple of the spirit.
Yes.
Because it is. I mean, it really is the seat of our energetic nature and our higher nature. So this is really the embodiment of the highest aspects of who we are as well.
Yes.
Okay. The temple of God in many, many ways. However, on the other end, we're still animals. And in many ways, it's like the donkey. And you can't get the donkey to move. So you have to hold the carrot in front of the donkey. Or you can also come with a whip in behind, whack, 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 Right. And so if the carrot doesn't work, well, then the stick will. So you use the rubber band, whack, every time you want to eat. And pretty soon the donkey learns to quit asking so often.
Yes. But it's important that you be reasonable about it. This is why I say that things like the rubber band spell and hypnosis can lead to anorexia because you can totally overuse this stuff. That snap, once the pain is gone, you get a dopamine rush because of the anesthetic that your body is creating to deal with the fact that A, you just got the snot snapped out of you. And second, you're actually probably a little bit on the hungry side. So it's, double whammy.
All right. We're getting ready to wrap up here. So I want to give you a homework assignment for next time.
All right.
Better
write it down.
I want to make sure you're working. I want you to think about today. In what area of your life right now you need more prosperity.
Right.
And I want you to spellcast for prosperity in that area of your life over this next month.
Right.
And come back and tell us what sort of spells you did, what the results were, what aspect of your life you were working on, and if you feel like you got any results with the spell or not.
Now remember, synonyms for prosperity are abundance,
right,
plentiful, overflowing. And we're not just looking at monetary things or material things. We're also looking at spiritual, emotional, physical.
Now, the Native Americans, let's take, for example, the Navajo, the Diné people. The Diné people talk about Yei. And for we were talking about healing magic before. And they have certain holy men that have some traditional healing work that they do. And they do it on the floor of the Hogan. And they do it with the traditional incantations and songs. Well, they're making this wonderful painting in sand, the way the Tibetan monks do. They're making these marvelous mandala spirits called Yei. Well, there's a philosophy behind this that's very similar to Hermetic philosophy. And that is that, you see, according to the Navajo, there is an underlying harmony that pervades the entire universe.
Right.
I mean, everything, the natural state of everything is in harmony.
Mhm.
And we talk about this with the God force also. Everything is,
Right.
the natural state of the human being is in harmony with with our surroundings,
Mhm.
filled with God force. And as we're filled with God force, also filled with abundance and prosperity in every other arena of our life as well.
Yes.
So when we find ourselves in moments of illness, it's because there has come an imbalance inside of you. There's become a disturbance in the God force.
Right.
This is what the Navajo holy people are looking for, to diagnose, to find out where this disturbance is and what Ye'i needs to be invoked in order to reestablish the underlying harmony.
Right.
So your quest in this next coming month is to take a look now, right at the beginning of the month, at what area of your life is still lacking a little bit, or what area of your life you're still feeling a little bit stuck, and to begin to spell cast in that arena of your life, exactly where your sticking points are.
Yes.
The rough edges. Let's start taking them off. So now you're going to do some abundance magic this next month to produce more abundance, more prosperity, more well-beingness
Mhm.
in all arenas of your life by focusing on one that's a little bit behind the others.
Right.
Fair enough. So with that said, thank you all for coming.
Thank you again for coming to Guild. It was really good to see you, to hear all of your wonderful comments. I'm glad that the bloats are going so well, and keep track of the magic that you're doing.
And please come when you come to class ready for class. And when I say ready for class, I mean come to class ready in the sense that you know what it is you'd like to ask, because you've actually done some spell work during the last month, and you've got some questions because of it. And also that you got some things to brag about while you're here, because that's why we're here. We're here to learn, and we're here to share with each other what has worked for us. So, all right, guys.
Bye now.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much for coming, and may your spells always work better than you expect. Have you ever wanted to gain real magical abilities so you can become the master of your destiny?
Do you wish you could get the ancient secret key for free so you can build the life of your dreams?
If you've wanted more out of life, to become all that you can be, physically, romantically, financially, spiritually, then you need to take action and get this right now.
That's right, and for free, but it won't be available for much longer.
So go right now to thescienceofmiracles.com and get started. Achieve the prosperous life you want for yourself. Gain ultimate life mastery.